It is found.
Here goes nothing,
Jeff shouted, yanking a steel lever and shifting the stationary engine out of neutral. Hydraulics moaned under the stress as gears flipped into place, spinning the turbine. Kevlar straps wrapped through steel loops drilled into the rock wall around the onyx door drew so taut they sounded like creaky floorboards as the 2-ton lift heaved, shaking dust from the ceiling. Yet the door held firm.
You've got to be kidding me.
Lee was standing at the top of the dead stairs, off to the side, sweaty, smelly, exhausted, and far too close to the action for any reasonable safety standard. Casey had talked her into wearing a hard hat and goggles at minimum, but damned if she wasn't going to be the first to stare into the doorway's open mouth. "More!" she barked over the engine. Jeff gave an unsure nod, seemingly having trouble controlling the turbine, gripping joysticks on the console as he stood on a graded platform in the rear. Huge bent legs that were drilled several feet into the floor rose and fell from the body of the machine like an insect, thus ensuring stability as thousands of pounds of force pulled on the wire retractors. The janky piece of hardware, which Lee's crew had dubbed the Alien, had been used 6 times, and 6 times it hadn't let her down.
"Let's not fuck up our favorite toy quite yet, eh?"
Jeff shouted.
"Just open the damn thing,"
Lee roared back, turning to find Casey at the foot of the stairs, standing back several feet towards the cave entrance, holding her stomach and wearing her anxiety like a beach hat. Recently, Lee had been finding herself wishing her pint-sized companion had not come on the dig at all.
She would have been happier at home with her mountains of quilts.
A low bellow was released by the wall, just distinguishable from the engine.
"It's gonna give!"
Lee screamed, taking a step closer to the action.
"Here we go!"
She could hear Casey calling, probably urging her to back off, but the voice was lost in the blender.
"Professor Evans! Bad place to be!"
Jeff shouted, but she didn't care.
"This might be our only chance."
The Kevlar straps were stretching past their limit. Each was rated for 2,000 pounds, the lift itself for 15. If that couldn't get the job done, it meant calling off the dig until they could commandeer heavier equipment, which meant weeks, maybe months. Not an option. Her mysterious donor wanted results. Their last correspondence proved as much. Bonus 200K. Open door. Any means. Lee turned and hustled down the stairs, grabbing the largest sledgehammer she could find, and charged back up the stairs. Landing on the top with her back to the door, she lifted the hammer and in a swift move released its full force onto the rock.
"You're crazy, Professor!"
Jeff shouted, throwing the throttle to maximum. After one more good, final smash, Lee leapt out of the way just as the red material around the door hissed like a cracked can of soda. The cavern wall surrounding it heaved, and the onyx door flung forward with a thunderous pop, crashing down the stairs, spinning and tumbling, stopping on the last step with a colossal thud. Casey leapt back as a wave of dust covered her from head to toe.
"Are you insane?"
she screamed, wiping her mouth and glasses. Lee stared into the empty black where the door once stood.
"I did it."
While Jeff killed the engine and laughed like he'd caught a fit.
"Woo! That was some wild shite. The alien strikes again." "I really did it."
Lee aimed the flashlight from her side pack into the open doorway, only able to penetrate the dust enough to see walls closing in quickly, narrowing into a path leading farther into the depths of the mountain.
"It's time."
Jeff stepped to her side.
"Congratulations."
"Thanks. You deserve a little bit of credit, too."
"Yeah, I do,"
he replied with a toothy smile. Lee grinned, pinched his ass, and stepped towards her exploration gear. Casey called from the bottom of the dead stairs.
I thought our agreement was if it took longer than 6 hours to open the door, we would enter in the morning." "Come on, where's your sense of adventure? You really think you'll be able to sleep knowing we just opened her up?"
Jeff asked.
"I don't sleep here anyways,"
Casey shouted.
"It's been a long day. I'm sure we're all tired. Maybe a nap could—"
"I'm good," Lee said.
"Me too,"
Jeff added.
"Fine, but you really want to go in now?"
Casey pleaded with her eyes, green in the face.
"There's a path,"
Lee said.
"Doesn't look difficult. Come up and check it out. You might feel better."
"Not likely." Casey took a step forward, stopped, turned, ran, and proceeded to vomit in the corner. "You doing all right, lassie?" Jeff sang as if he were patting a friend's back who'd had one too many pints. Casey leaned on her knees, her hair covering half her face, and gave a thumbs up.
Good enough for me.
Lee tightened her shoulder pack, readied her camera, and turned on her headlamp.
You can stay here, Casey. Honestly.
Jeff put on his own trekking pack.
I think she's just as curious about what's inside as the rest of us. Might just need a moment, right?
It was the freeze-dried omelets, Casey said, rallying and spitting some more on her way up the stairs.
I'm okay.
Once fitted with respirators, Lee led the group, with Casey second and Jeff in the rear. Lifting her hand, she slowly pressed forward as the fog moved minimally around her. There were no handholds on the walls, or railings, or even images or cave paintings.
These are the humblest bunch of ancient fucks ever. No signatures or bullshit anywhere,
Jeff remarked.
Yeah, where's the ego?
Lee added, taking notice of the ground, which was polished to a lumpy, smooth sheen, making it difficult to walk quickly on. 15 meters into the tunnel, her headlamp revealed an opening at the end, a pitch-black space. As they stepped through, the wind on her back spread out into a new cavern, so enormous her headlamp couldn't find the ceiling. When her ankle nearly rolled into a divot, Lee aimed her light down, revealing a thick, round indentation carved into the dark gray floor, intersecting with others in a precise geometric orientation. Based on the small section she could see, the lines were part of a huge emblem carved into the ground.
Better get some video, she said.
Casey aimed her camcorder fitted with a light and pressed record. Lee waited a dramatic moment before peering into the lens.
Hope I don't look like ass.
This is Professor Lee Marie Evans, researcher and lecturer at the UCL Institute of Archaeology in London. Today's Wednesday, October 18th, 2006. The time is a little after 1700 hours. My team and I are standing inside the door beyond the Dead Stairs Passage, located in the western Tibesti Mountains, roughly 300 miles northwest of Faya Largeau in northern Chad. Beyond the onyx door, we found a corridor roughly 20 yards in length that opened into a larger cavern. We've just begun exploring and have already noticed some interesting things. Take, for example, the floor of the cavern. Intricate carvings, roughly 6 inches deep and 6 inches wide, line the ground of the cave, obviously forming a complex pattern of some kind. From above, they might create a larger symbol. However, I still do not recognize the design, nor does it resemble any ancient writings or cultural symbols that I'm aware of. Whoever built this place remains a mystery. Jeff pulled a few flares from his pack, lit them one by one, and hurled the first two into the distance. They bounced off a wall, rising high 30 yards away and curving up, disappearing into darkness.
Room looks like a big donut, eh?
He said, tossing another flare. It sparked and hissed when it struck something above them, 10 feet away, bouncing and spinning wildly to the ground. The flare soaked a hulking figure in red light, revealing a thick tongue spewing from a roaring mouth. Claws were reaching for her. The creature's snake-like body was leaned forward in a taunting attack. Casey and Jeff screamed.
Fuck! Scared the piss right out of me and right back in,
Jeff said in a panic as Lee approached the statue, a pristine version of the duo at the base of the Dead Stairs. But this one had not been ravaged by time and did not have 4 arms, but 10. The 6 in the middle, smaller by comparison, must have fallen off of the outer statues over the centuries. The detail in the versions beyond the door were awe-inspiring. Every scale and whisker was present.
Magnificent.
Lee looked beyond the statue and spotted its twin to the side. The dark gray and cobalt blue creatures shone vibrant and alive in their headlamps, also guarding a stairway, this one much taller, with a narrower path rising into darkness without barriers or railing. Whatever lay at the top was worth protection from these two nasty characters.
And it's been waiting for me.
I really, really hate this, Casey muttered.
It's just rock,
Lee said.
We live on rock. Let's keep going.
Moving on, Lee described what she saw to the camera, hardly pausing for interruption or to breathe, as she analyzed the polished rock of the entrance and walls, speculating on the floor carvings and going over the statues inch by inch, aching over how well they were preserved. The mystery was far too exciting. Lee lost track of time and herself. After a while, Casey stopped filming.
What's wrong? Is your arm tired?
Lee asked.
Do you think we have enough for today?
Casey asked hopefully.
I do. Anyone? No?
Lee and Jeff spun their headlamps onto her.
You faring all right there? Jeff asked. You're looking a little...
As though on cue, Casey grabbed her stomach, coughed, and leaned over to vomit again.
Don't puke on the fucking site!
Lee screamed.
I'm so sorry. I can't control it,
Casey moaned, spitting out the last bit.
I'm thinking it wasn't the eggs, Jeff muttered. I'm okay. It's just... When the door was opened, I felt ill. Do you not feel it?
Casey asked.
Hey, don't get me wrong. I'm not feeling 100% either, but this is me since yesterday. We're worried about you,
Jeff said.
Maybe it's best if you go,
Lee suggested. Sure, it was a reasonable response, but the looks she got from Casey and Jeff said otherwise.
Why is everyone so sensitive? I'm fine. I can do it. I'll stay,
Casey said with a self-reassuring huff. Lee smiled, though wasn't convinced.
I know this place is creepy, but... It's not creepy,
Casey interrupted, finally catching up to join them while taking worried glances off to the side, away from the stairs.
It just feels wrong.
What's over there? Lee asked, eyeing her.
She's hiding something.
Casey gave an overblown shrug, her most obvious tell. Stepping away from the stairs, Lee rounded the second gargoyle and spotted something spread over the ground a couple dozen yards in front of her.
We don't know if it's safe over there,
Casey squeaked, hurrying to follow. Lee held her hand out, and Jeff placed a flare in it. Once lit, she aimed it forward and ducked around the towering column, stepping carefully over the carvings in the ground as the forms in front of her came into focus. Brown and gray, a jumble of shapes. An arm became clear, then a femur, then a mound of skulls.
Jesus Christ almighty,
Jeff said, wide-eyed.
There are thousands of them. This is no tomb,
Casey said.
It's a sacrificial chamber.
We don't know that, Lee started, before feeling the tip of her shoe go over an edge. She halted, inches from falling, and caught Jeff before he went over. The void before them was so deep it appeared invisible until they were directly upon it. Shining her lamp, Lee found the visible bones were merely the tip of the proverbial iceberg. A slanted mass was across from her, nearest the high column, making it appear the bodies were dumped in from that side, atop wherever the new set of stairs led. Some of the bones were clearly human, while others weren't so obvious.
Maybe cows and goats.
A few of the skeletons nearest the edge seemed to be reaching out, as though their last moments were spent battling to leave the pit.
What's wrong? Never seen skeletons before?
Lee asked, spotting Casey's and Jeff's dull expressions.
Not like this. This is grotesque,
Jeff said.
They were thrown in alive,
Casey added gravely.
That's a hell of a drop,
Jeff said.
Look. Either these people were really tiny, or those are kids in there. What kind of prick would do this sort of thing?
None I know of, Casey said.
Me neither,
Lee agreed.
But I'm not about to start judging ancient dead societies. Sounds time-consuming and boring. I'm not saying go totally rage every time we hear about a goat sacrificed or discover some priest's knob-chopping tools, Jeff said. I'm saying look at that!
He pointed at the heap of bones.
This is starting to feel more like a dark cathedral where folks worship demons and the like. Being shitty for shit's sake, you know? Real old school cunts.
Maybe it was sealed on purpose then, Casey piped up.
Sealed? What do you mean?
Lee asked.
You said it yourself. It looked like earthquakes and runoff had settled the rubble in front of the door. But if all of this is untouched, it means the door was blocked from the outside, on purpose.
It was an interesting theory, one of hundreds Lee was anxious to explore. This place was going to provide years' worth of research, maybe even some notable awards, or an appearance on a television show or two.
Why the hell not?
But for now, she wanted to see what was at the top of the second set of stairs.
This pit is off limits for now.
Too dangerous.
Let's head up top. I don't think we'll need climbing equipment on the stairs. Just be careful.
The stairs? Casey asked, following Lee and Jeff back. Lee looked up the steps, fading in a perfect gradient from gray to deep black.
You two go ahead. I'll stay down here.
Casey said softly, apparently resigned to taking more pictures.
That's fine,
Lee agreed.
Lot of love in this cave right now, gotta say,
Jeff added as he followed Lee. She took slow steps up the first few stairs.
Nobody's been on these steps for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
The professor was fully aware there was no longer a camera rolling, but relished it all the same. The journey took a full minute, as the stairs narrowed and tilted their incline as she neared the top. With each careful step, her heart beat a little faster. When they ended, her headlamp fell upon an enormous shape standing upon a high plateau on the platform before her, 5 meters wide by 10 meters long. The creature was down on all fours, its head strewn with horns from front to back, like a hideous, portly dinosaur with wide wings stretched over the room. Massive hooves were molded into the ground at the bottom of broad, powerful legs, below a monstrous tongue twisting back and forth in the air. Its mouth was a cavern of teeth tilted out every which way, some protruding from its lower jaw, piercing its skin. The hide covering it seemed less like flesh than jagged rock and open wounds.
What's up there?
Casey called from below.
Nothing,
Jeff shouted back, his voice cracking a little from fright.
What do you make of this guy?
He asked quietly.
No idea. He sure is handsome.
Good to meet the competition. Lee put her light on a pedestal near the edge overlooking the cavern. A stone sat next to it in the center of the deck, with a dip in its core, creating a natural bowl that was large enough for several gallons of water.
Maybe a baptismal pool?
Does any of this make sense to you? Jeff asked weakly.
Not at all,
Lee said, shining her light on the side of the base of the statue, finding a dark crevice as tall as an adult.
Look at this.
Jeff took her by the arm before she got far. Maybe that's not such a good idea.
We're worrying about good ideas now?
I'm worried about Casey, Jeff said. She's not doing well. Maybe we should go. Come back in the morning. Fresh, you know?
Why do you want to stop? I can feel it's right through here.
Jeff did a double take. Feel what now?
That we should keep going. Come on.
Lee turned sideways and pressed on through the tight opening. Forcing herself forward, she entered a room no bigger than an average suburban bathroom. A stone bench was at her left knee. The opposite wall had 2 deep, carved shelves.
That's it?
Jeff followed, having to duck to fit. Once inside, he looked around and made a huh sound.
This wasn't carved. It's completely natural, except for the shelves,
Lee said, scanning the room with a surprising sense of disappointment.
Not sure what I was expecting, just not this.
End of the line, looks like, Jeff said, taking a knee and glancing around. Feels sort of like a green room, you know, for the band before they go on stage. He played a quick air guitar solo as Lee stepped over to the shelf on the far wall. Her light fell on 3 smooth black stones. The smallest was nearly the size of a baseball, the next twice as big, and the largest was double that. Their silky surfaces gleamed in Lee's headlamp as magenta and steel gray wisps seemed to dance like smoke within the crystalline rock. On the top shelf, she found a serrated dagger covered in a thin layer of dust. Blowing lightly on the knife, she revealed a cold black handle, smooth, yet primitive. You got something? Jeff asked.
Take a look.
He shuffled over as she picked up the dagger. Isn't it a rule not to mess with the merchandise? He asked too late. The handle felt ice cold on Lee's skin, almost painfully so, and didn't warm in her grasp.
I don't understand, she said, putting the dagger down. This can't be all of it. This doesn't answer any of my questions.
You know, most people would be happy just to discover a one-of-a-kind underground boogeyman cult church. Gonna have to give it a proper name, aren't we? How about Temple of the Beast? Jeff punctuated with another air guitar riff. Lee shook her head, but not at the name.
Don't you see? If we don't discover anything about this place or these people, we've failed. Someone else will come in and take the credit. They always do.
Good thing it's not all about that, right? The glory, I mean. Jeff smirked, trying to goad one out of her, but she wasn't feeling it. Looking over the shelves one last time, Lee decided the dagger would have to do as a consolation prize.
Take it. Just be careful. And get pictures of everything first.
Jeff took several pictures with his phone before wrapping the dagger in cotton rags from his trekking pack. Upon touching it, he winced. Fucker's cold, eh? With the bundle safely wrapped up in a plastic bag and placed in his pack, they stepped toward the exit. Lee's head was hung low. What about these? Jeff asked, pointing at the 3 stones on the lower shelf. Bring them along, I guess. They're pretty, Lee said, slipping through the exit, emerging beneath the statue of the titanic monstrosity and finding Casey had not moved from her spot on the stairs below. How you feeling? Lee asked. Casey responded with another silent thumbs up as Jeff exited the small chamber. Those 3 fuckers, whatever they're made of, whew, heavy little bastards, Jeff said, hoisting his pack. Can we please, for the love of God, go back to camp now? Casey shouted. Yes, we can, Lee said, also feeling a sense of relief. It was freshly nightfall when they made it back, and Casey and Jeff quickly retired to their own tents. Jeff, to probably put his feet up and relax with a beer and tea combo. He always packs enough somehow. While Casey would likely get to work on her reports. Heading to her tent to download her camera's memory card, Lee stowed a copy in her bag, then began writing in her journal as gusts of wind outside sent sheets of sand rattling over the leather tent. An hour or so later, a friendly voice called from outside. Lee, are you decent? What now? She signed the entry in her journal and turned to the entrance. Yes? Casey and Jeff both entered. Thought you'd be asleep by now. Got another big day tomorrow. About that, Jeff started. We've had a talk and think you should hear what we have to say. All due respect, of course. That makes it sound like a mutiny, Casey said. It's not. It's simple, logical, professionally minded fact-sharing. Damn whoever invented the term fact-sharing. Every night for the past week and a half, I have gone to my desk and I've told lies. For you. I told the Department of Agriculture and the SAA we're adhering to proper excavating protocols. We're not. I told the Chadian government our employees never left. They did. I'm getting tired of having a million questions and getting the same answer every time. It's what the benefactor wants. Well, I don't care about the stupid benefactor anymore. In fact, he can just kiss my ass. Casey finished, blowing her bangs out of her eyes. She, Lee said. Excuse me? Our benefactor. It's a woman. She's from Switzerland, pays on time, goes by the name Aluka, and that's all I know. I like her because she lets me do things my way and doesn't stick her nose in it. Neither of us asks the other many questions. Way I see it, it's all win-win. How many of our digs has this magic woman, what's her name, Albacore? How many has she funded without your business manager and personal assistant / accountant knowing? Aluka, the last 2. Cairo? Casey asked. Lee let silence answer. Why am I finding out about this now? Because you asked, Lee said. Not that I have to tell you at all. Cairo was only partially funded by her, which in retrospect I think was a test. Guess we passed because Pakistan was a dream gig, and now here we are. But if I didn't know better, I'd say you weren't happy about it. Jeff cleared his throat, and Casey made a silent, thank you for the reminder motion. We are grateful for the opportunity, but none of this changes the fact that this dig, though successful, has been a disaster. Now that the door's been opened and the temple explored, we feel it's time to get out. Lee looked at Jeff. Actually, I'm with Casey, Professor Evans. I don't think we can afford to stick around any longer. We did the job, right? Case closed. Got the check. Time for a nap and a pint at a 5-star hotel. What do you say? We haven't fully explored the site, Lee said as calmly as possible. We've explored every inch and didn't find a single item of interest except for the dagger. Ooh, a dagger. Cool. Oh, and the largest sacrificial pit known to man. Casey was speaking with surprising sass, which Lee would have loved any other time. Be careful how far you go, Professor Evans warned. I mean no disrespect, but we had a deal. Anything we find goes to the university first. Then we figure out what our mysterious donor gets, right? Ultimately, I get to decide what we do, where we go, how we dig, and what we do with whatever we find, Lee said, having had about enough. If she pushes this, so help me. But Casey continued, undeterred.
And you seem to have forgotten your own ethics.
Oh, hell no. Lee closed her eyes and took a calming breath, hoping it would work. It didn't.
Let me get this straight. You two want to send off our only finds? Literally all we have to show for our efforts in this godforsaken place? Get rid of them before we or anyone else gets to properly study them? And go back home empty-handed? That right?
Well, when you put it like that, Jeff snickered.
No matter what you say, I'm going to tell the truth, Casey said. I've already written a draft to National Services. I can send it at any time. Just because we're in the middle of the desert doesn't mean I don't have Wi-Fi.
She kept her spine arched and chest out to finish strong.
She's been studying me. That's sweet.
You can't do that. Not yet, Lee said.
What are you going to do? Kill me?
I wouldn't know how. Lee chuckled, hoping to lighten the mood. Another miss.
Okay, fine, I hear you. I haven't been my professional self lately. The artifacts will go to the university, as promised and as ethics obviously call for. But I'm nowhere near done with the temple. I need more than a day. Can you please just hang on with me a little while longer?
Lee asked, hoping they would accept after a small fight. Casey's eyes drooped and closed. A tear streamed down her cheek as she slumped into the cot beside her. Jeff fanned her with both hands. Hey, it's all right. Take your time. Get some air in your lungs.
Crying. This is why you're not promotable.
Her assistant opened wet, glimmering eyes and focused on Lee.
I can't do it, Professor Evans. I can't stay. Not for 1 second longer than I have to. Being here is unbearable. I'm asking. I'm begging.
She clasped her hands together.
We need to get out of here.
Lee didn't know what to say, finally settling on,
You're free to go. You're not coming?
Casey sounded genuinely stunned. Lee stood.
Never left anything undone before, not starting now. I know there's something else here, and I intend to find it. Lee,
Casey was shaking her head lightly, her brow furrowed.
Don't do this. I have to.
She and her assistant shared a warm glance, enough to reassure Lee they still cared for one another. But business was business. Great! Jeff threw his arms up in the air and exclaimed in dismay. What am I supposed to do now? I can't very well leave you out in the desert, can I?
No, you most definitely cannot, Lee said with a smirk. Casey will take the truck in the morning. I'll pack the dagger and the stones. Get them ready for shipment to London. The SAA is going to want to see something to prove we weren't bullshitting them. Why don't we give them one of the 3 black stones? Casey suggested. Sure, I'll send them the little one. That's fine. Anything else?
Lee looked at both of them, waiting for an answer. None came.
Then I guess it's decided.
Right, Jeff started. Casey will take off in the morning with our best truck and all the artifacts. The 2 of us will stay here for no fucking reason whatsoever, and we'll all meet up in London in a few days for a laugh and a drink. Assuming we're not all dead, of course, he finished with a whimpering laugh.